Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Kiev, because according to information we have, the United States of America announced another military package worth $425 million. We have 155 and 155 artillery shells, we have missiles, we have javelins, we have small arms and munition, and the most important, we have Striker armored personnel carriers. And some sources reported that the United States of America during this package is going to provide Ukrainians 211 Strikers. This is a very big number of armored personnel carriers, because this number is enough to conduct small counter-offensive operation or small offensive operation. You know that usually when the United States of America announce about another military package of armored vehicles, that means that they are already on the territory of Ukraine, and most likely the Ukrainians are planning, not like Ukrainians, but the United States of America are planning to conduct several counterattacks, powerful counterattacks, before the voting days, before the final day of the president elections campaign in the United States of America. They need to get some victories, not they, but probably Kamala Harris and Joe Biden needs to have small victories, and for these purposes during the next few days there are going to be several counterattacks from the Ukrainian side, either in the Kursk direction or somewhere else. Let's say some sources are saying that the Ukrainians may try to counterattack the Ukrainians in the north in Kupiansk direction with the purpose to cut the Russian positions in the village of Kurakhove and to encircle them. Obviously the first days of November are going to be very hot, so stay tuned, we'll see what is going to be next. And now let's talk about the situation on the ground, and first we're going to discuss the South Donetsk direction, where the Russians continue offensive operation in the direction of the river by the name of Sukhiye Yale. So according to information we have, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the northern direction from the villages of Shakhtarska and Novoukrainka. At least this information was provided as by neutral mappers, by pro-Ukrainian mappers, and by pro-Russian mappers. So these are the changes on the ground during the previous 24 hours. The Russians just yesterday reported about complete control of Novoukrainka and Shakhtarska, and now we see that the Russians currently on the outskirts of Maximovka. And during the previous night of Ukrainian time, we received a significant number of reports that the Russians made several attempts to attack the village of Maximovka, trying to test the Ukrainian defense belt and to understand what exactly the Ukrainians have on the territory of the settlement. The Ukrainians will fight for this territory as long as possible, because if the Ukrainians are defeated, they would be forced to fall back as far as possible in the northern direction, and then the Russians will be able to get the operational square and to begin the preparation offensive in the direction of Constantinople. Now let's move further. We have reports that there are very heavy clashes on the territory of Trudovo, but yet we haven't received anything, neither the confirmation from different mappers reliable, nor the geolocations that can confirm this. I'll remind you that yesterday some pro-Russian sources have already adjusted the territory of Trudovo in Russian favor, but without any geolocations or confirmations. Now let's move further. We have changes on the ground in the area responsibilities of the group of forces south. For the previous several days we haven't been receiving anything from this direction, but today we got the first report that confirms additional progress on the ground. According to information we have, as a result of clashes, the Russian armed forces managed to take under control additional 3 lines in the fortifications, tightening the Kurakhove news and getting closer and closer to the river of Sukhiye Yale from the north. So this is very important, because most likely the Russians began their outflanking maneuver with the purpose to attack the village of Dalny and to cut this territory in two. Maybe during the previous several days the Russians were regrouping, bringing additional forces and preparing themselves for this breakthrough with the purpose to answer the village and to cut into and to defeat the Ukrainians completely. So let's wait what is going to be next. Obviously it's going to be very interesting. The Western media confirms that the Russian army has launched an offensive in Donbass on a 70-kilometer wide front, breaking through the Ukrainian defenses in many areas. That was stated by Bild. Now everybody in the world is following this situation situation, trying to understand what is going to be next. Maybe the Ukrainians are planning to bring these 211 strikers exactly in this area to conduct several counterattacks. Possible area of counterattack might be the city of Novogrodovka, because we continue receiving updates of clashes for the landfill of Novogrodovka III. There are still very heavy clashes. The Russians still haven't managed to secure this territory. Now let's move further. We still haven't received anything that confirmed Russian control over Stepanovka and Ilinka. I'll remind you that yesterday several pro-Russian resources reported about complete control over this territory. As for the beginning of the 2nd of November, neither pro-Ukrainian nor the neutral mappers confirmed this information. Now let's move further. We have several changes on the ground, additional changes on the ground to the west of Novodmitrivka and to the west of Vasilidova. These are the changes on the ground in comparison with the previous day. Small gains in the village of Novodmitrivka and additional gains of the armed force of Russian Federation around the village of Vishneva. The additional true line was captured and several positions to the north of the village. Anyway, as for the most important updates from this territory, we remember that now we are following just FPV drone attacks that take place along the railways, of course, between the city of Selidov and the city of Pokrovsk. During the previous 12 hours, the Russian sources published additional batch of videos of how Russian FPV drone operators were destroying everything along this road, and we remember the pattern of Russian attack. If we see drones, most likely the Russians are planning to move in this direction. If we increase the numbers of this just for 3 days, starting from the 31st of October, we're going to see the significant number of Russian FPV drone attacks on Ukrainian vehicles. The Ukrainians are suffering losses, as you can see. Now let's move further and let's talk about the Kupiansk direction. First, we're going to talk about the Serebryanka area and the Siversk direction. This is like a part of probably southern Kupiansk. And today we got the most important update from this territory. We got the video with the Ukrainian flag on the territory of the settlement by the name of Serebryanka. I'll remind you that a few days ago, the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to take under complete control the settlement of Serebryanka. And now the Ukrainians are showing us the video with their flag, right, exactly in the central part of the settlement. Of course, we haven't adjusted the entire settlement in Ukrainian favor because it's not the video from the eastern outskirts, most likely the village. Currently, the situation is simple. Either the settlement is cut in two, the western part and Ukraine control, the eastern and the Russian control, or the Russians didn't answer the settlement at all. And those were the same story, and that was the same story as with the settlement of Verkhnykamensk. I'll remind you that the Russians dropped the flag in the most western part and reported that the entire village was captured, but nothing like this happened. Anyway, as for this area, this is a very important report. Because why is that? Because, for example, since the beginning of the 27th of October, we got a lot of updates of some possible cauldron, or some mystic cauldron in the Serebryanka forest. We got a lot of reports about the forces of 119th and 53rd separate brigades of the armed forces of Ukraine that were caught in cauldron on the territory of the forest, that the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians from the south, that the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians from the north, trying to destroy this cauldron and to maintain the line of combat contact. But the last report we got was the 30th of October, and after that we stopped receiving anything. Most likely the Ukrainians conducted several counterattacks, several successful counterattacks that allowed them to unblock the Ukrainian forces in the forest, and now either the Ukrainians are regrouping and retreating or trying to stabilize the situation and to counterattack even further in the direction of Bilogorovka. Now let's move further. As for the southern Kupiansk direction, we have additional changes on the ground according to pro-Ukrainian mappers. So the Russians, as a result of clashes, according to pro-Ukrainian mappers, managed to improve their positions in the vicinity of the village by the name of Terny. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the northern Kupiansk direction. We have a lot of changes on the ground. First of all, according to information we have from reliable pro-Russian sources, the Russians managed to improve their positions in the villages of Stepi, Kopanki, and Pershatravneva. These two villages were captured by the Russians by the beginning of the 2nd of November. Summarizing everything, currently the Russians most likely control something like this, and this is a very risky and very dangerous situation for those Ukrainians that are currently located in the villages Sergeyevka, Nadievka, and in this artillery pocket. Either the Ukrainians are going to counterattack with the upcoming 211 striker personal armored vehicles, or otherwise the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back with the purpose not to be caught in cauldron in the direction of the village village Chernishino-Novosergeyevka. So something big is happening here. Let's wait for the next updates. As for the changes on the ground that were confirmed at least by different mappers, we have some changes between the villages Berestovo and Kurakhove. So let's take a look at them. According to different mappers, the Russians managed to take under control additional dense network of the fortifications and Tokotsk and Cauldron, the armored forces of Ukraine that are currently were located in this artillery pocket. We don't know exactly the number of soldiers of the armored forces of Ukraine that were caught in Cauldron. Let's wait for additional updates, but according to information we have, they are the forces of the 77th Air Mobile Brigade of the armored forces of Ukraine. Either these forces are going to escape the Cauldron today, maybe this right now, otherwise they would be caught and captured forever. Now let's move further. Let's talk about the Sudra direction, where the Russians continue their counter-offensive operation. As for the previous 24 hours, we got the significant number of updates exactly from the northern part. The Russians are FPV droning the Ukrainians. The Russians are attacking the Ukrainian forces, trying to prepare the foothold before possible further offensive operation. Another important region that I forgot to talk about, and let's return back a little bit to the city of Avdiivka, because during the previous 24 hours we got the most important update from this territory and we have changes on the ground, and now we can state officially that the armored force of Russian Federation, as a result of clashes, managed to establish complete control over the Citadel region, because we started receiving geolocations much further in the southeastern direction from the settlement. For example, in this video we can see how the Ukrainians were bombing and attacking the Russian force exactly in this building, and in the final part we got the episode how Ukrainians were counter-attacking and capturing the Russian soldiers. Based on this video we have adjusted the Citadel completely in Russian favor. This is very important update because now the Russians have no barriers in front of them to move further in the direction of Vovcha River. And most likely during the next few days, during the next few weeks, the Russians will try to take the northern Vovchansk under complete control, and maybe they will try even to cross the river and to begin movements in the direction of Kupiansk with the purpose to connect with the forces that are currently attacking the northern Kupiansk direction itself. So a lot of very interesting updates. Let's wait for additional progress. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.